Association of University Women, Worcester Branch, the University of Akron Wayne College. Joining me on stage right now are candidates for the 16th District Representative to Congress, including Jeffrey Blevins, John Bucherri, Jim Renacci, and Robert Ross, a write-in candidate. We will have again both questions from the audience in the form of written questions and oral questions. If you have an oral question, you can use the microphone in the aisle. You need to first state your name. And I will recognize you as you get to the microphone to do oral questions if you'd like. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and start with our written questions. We have lots of questions this evening. The first question is, can you suggest changes to the U.S. tax code that would help the average citizen and help the federal government pursue the goals in helping the economy? The question again is, can you suggest changes to the U.S. tax code that would help the average citizen and help the federal government pursue its goals in helping the economy? We'll start with Mr. Blevins.
I believe that before we make any changes to the U.S. tax code, we first need to make changes to the federal spending habits going on in Washington, D.C. We do need to cut spending so as to provide for fiscal strength, which is a part of national security. Once we rein in the out-of-control spending in Washington, we can then look at ways to reform the way in which we subsidize our federal government. I'd like to see, there are several programs or options available to us. I think any cuts that we, or any changes we make to the system need to be fair to all Americans, and not just certain segments of society, but again, all Americans should receive tax cuts simply because all Americans who are paying taxes deserve to keep more of the money they make. Some of the changes or ideas that are out there are a national sales tax which needs to be looked at. There are also options for equal taxes as well.
Thank you. Mr. Bucherri?
Thank you for the question. And right now, we have implemented some tax reforms through the stimulus package and others that are targeted for small businesses and for working families. In fact, the tax rates this year are the lowest they've been since Truman was in office in 1950. We've gone after certain things in the tax code. Number one, how we're going to stimulate jobs and help our economy is we've closed the tax loopholes that give our big corporations a pat on the back and your tax dollars to ship their jobs overseas. That's the first thing we've done. We've also targeted small businesses with net operating loss carrybacks and reducing those taxes for small businesses. We've increased the child credits that are available for working families, and also I have gone with a bipartisan approach to reduce or to give a huge tax credit for research and development that's done right here in the United States, an added benefit so that they do that manufacturing in the United States. We've led every technological revolution, and this tax break can help us move our economy forward.
Thank you. Mr. Renacci?
Can I have a question again?
Yes. Can you suggest changes to the U.S. tax code that would help the average citizen and help the federal government pursue its goals in helping the economy?
That's what I thought the question was. Look, I'm a CPA. I can tell you the tax code is extremely complicated. There are line items on your tax return that most individuals don't even understand. And I can tell you I've sat in front of IRS agents who don't understand many of the line items also. So we do need simplification. We need to be able to simplify the tax form. We need to be able to simplify it for the individual who prepares it. But ultimately, and there is a number of options that we can look at, but ultimately, the simplification should amount in a net tax reduction. Because today, we need to be able to get our economy going. One of the things I'm a believer in is that we need less taxes. We need to be able to reduce our tax liability on corporations and on individuals so that we can get the economy going back, get corporations to be able to hire people. But we do have to simplify. There's line items, there's deductions, there's multiple opportunities to add numbers into these line items. And again, most IRS agents and most CPAs and most people who prepare the return don't understand that complicated tax return.
Thank you. Mr. Ross?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. What I am is probably a little more unusual. I'm the candidate that would fit most closely none of the above. I'm interested in taxes in regards to the impact it would have on the constituents in this district. I would be interested in integrating that into a program that I would like to see integrated into our current system of a comprehensive development plan. I would like to get together not only our tax issues, but our economic development, environmental, any number of problems we're currently facing, put that before a committee of experts, have them decide how can we integrate our current federal tax situation in state and local, and have them come up with that as part of our general comprehensive plan. I think that's going to do us generally more good than just some generic tax program that's not going to get passed in Congress.
Thank you. Any further comments about that question from anybody? Okay, let's move on to another question. What are some of the major provisions of the health care plan recently passed that would improve the health of all children living in the United States? Again, what are some of the major provisions of the health care plan recently passed that would improve the health of all children living in the United States? Mr. Bucieri?
Thank you. Some of the major provisions that would help children, obviously, are allowing their children to stay on their parents' health care plan until they're 26. Katie from our congressional district was life flighted up to the Cleveland Clinic. She had renal failure, and she's fighting for life. She's no longer a full-time student because of this. And she called and sent an email just the other day thanking us for passing the reform, allowing her to stay on her parents' health care plan. She would be in devastating shape had that not happened. We also made sure that all children in the United States are covered under some insurance plan with the passage of the State Children's Health Insurance Program. SCHIP was 11 million children in the United States now who didn't have access to health care, now have access to health care. Also, we've ended pre-existing conditions for children. Jay Hawkins, a young boy, autistic boy from this congressional district, in this county actually, wasn't able to get a health insurance card. His mother called me 3 weeks ago. For the first time, this 10-year-old boy, Jay Hawkins, has an insurance card because he was denied previously because he had a pre-existing condition. Now, there's big differences between my opponent and I on this, and I hope those come out this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Renacci.
Sure. I believe, again, the health care bill was a very complicated bill, as you all understand, with 2,000 pages. And we could have gotten a number of these things fixed in just a very short amount of pages. You know, pre-existing conditions, and individual caps on certain illnesses, those are things that we should have worked on in a 4 or 5 page bill, and they would have helped children. The problem is, we took a bill and we made it a 2,000-page bill, which is increasing costs. So even though we have now new coverages and the opportunity to cover more, the cost is going up. And I have companies that I've talked to in this district, 68% increase in healthcare coverage, 52% increase, 28% increase. People are losing jobs now because the cost of healthcare is going up, because this bill didn't take into consideration how much the cost is going to increase. They're losing their jobs, and what's worse about it, we may cover the children today, but how about that family member that loses their job or loses their health insurance because their company now had a 68% increase?
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
What I'd like to point out is this bill was primarily a health insurance reform, not a health care reform. I agree with Mr. Bucieri that this is a good thing that they allow more children to get health insurance, but as far as health care, I don't think that anywhere near what needs to be looked at. For instance, if a child is born after the year 2000, by the time they graduate, 1 in 3 is going to graduate with diabetes. If you're from an ethnic group, 1 in 2 is going to graduate with diabetes. That is the open door to heart disease and cancer. I don't see anything addressing the huge problem we face with the health crisis that's occurring right now before our very eyes with our children. And in spite of the fact that this insurance package may sound good, I didn't hear anything that said we're going to do this or that to help these children. And that needs desperate attention now.
Thank you, Mr. Blevins.
I understand the question was, what are some of the major provisions that will help improve health of children in the United States? I see this health bill as being detrimental to the health of all Americans, children and future generations of children. I see this bill having a negative effect on the medical industry, as doctors are already leaving the practice of medicine, and I think that they will continue to do so, which will decrease the quality of medical care that all Americans see. I think if you wanted to provide for better health for children as well as adults, we could have increased competition in the market, and this bill falls short of that. We could have made it easier for doctors to practice. This bill falls short of that as well. So I see the long-term effects of this healthcare legislation as being more detrimental than improving the health of children in the United States.
Thank you. Any further comments about that question, Mr. Boccieri?
Thank you, Cindy. First and foremost, the insurance companies are acting like credit card companies. In fact, since we've begun the debate on healthcare reform, they have increased their profits since March of 2009 by 26%, overcharging folks before any of these premiums and before any of these reforms have been rolled out. So they are acting like credit card companies. The state exchanges will pick up folks who have been unemployed or trying to take their insurance from job to job. And also, it's going to allow for competition. We're going to be able to set up compacts between states and allow for us to buy across state lines. One of the biggest differences in our campaigns is that Mr. Renacci would like to repeal this law. So children like Jay Hawkins, who now has an insurance card, Katie, who now has insurance because she can stay on her parents' plan, he wants to repeal all that. It's on his campaign literature. It's been all over his website. So let's just be clear. I don't want to take away Jay Hawkins' insurance card. I don't want to deny Katie the opportunity to stay on her parents' insurance plan so that she can seek coverage and care. She's suffering from renal failure. We have a lot more work to do on insurance reform and making sure that insurance companies aren't behaving like credit card companies.
Other comments, Mr. Renacci?
Yeah, it's interesting, again, that Mr. Boccieri always continues to use half-truths when he talks about things. I have said I want to repeal and replace the health care bill because this bill is toxic. I want to take provisions that are good, which are the pre-existing conditions and some of those ones I talked about, and put them in a 4 or 5 page bill, and then come back and make sure that the citizens and employees of many companies in this country do not end up with health care costs skyrocketing so they cannot have coverage. And then ultimately they lose their coverage and they lose their ability to cover their children. So there is a difference between the two of us. It's replace and repeal. Now the other thing you notice, and listen to what he says, we, as though the government, we the government are going to do this for you. And we the government are going to do that for you. Major difference. We don't need the government in our lives. We do not need the government in our lives, and we can do better with less government. That's the difference.
Okay, other comments? Mr. Blevins?
Mr. Boccieri spoke that we still need to improve the current health care bill. My question to that would be, then why not wait and get it right the first time?
Okay. Other comments? Mr. Ross?
Yeah, I'd like to point out that what we may have wanted with the health care bill was a beautiful young thoroughbred, and what we got by the time we got through the process was a two-legged, dumb, blind, deaf camel. We got it okay? And that's because of the process that developed that program. The process is political and it's intertwined with special interests, wealthy donors, okay? That's my biggest concern, is we're dealing with bills. They act as though they're going to be independent, free agents when they get to Congress. I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. They can't possibly do that. They're Republicans or Democrats. When they get to Congress, they're going to be handed the playbook by their parties and they're going to be told to follow them. And they're going to do that because, just as you saw all through this decade, they have followed the political party playbook every step of the way. And that's my complaint.